STP, which in these scenarios, they would have to put a private one in. These are private,
Okay.
you know, and there would not be the public option where other, you know, people on Main Street, which was what we were planning for, was a centralized STP that anybody could hook into and be able to get some revenue for their buildings so they could fix them up and, you know, change them to be
Would they
more.
have to do an STP, or some of these retail uses, I don't know what the flow is?
Yeah,
but
we'd have to look at
Yeah,
that. We didn't
that-
get that far.
They
We're
could-
just
they
doing like
potentially could
shapes
do
on
Just by
paper.
conventional.
density, and in this area, if you're talking about apartments, I can't see how else you can do that except
No, I'm-
possibly cluster systems developed within that, but it's out of our scope right now.
John, I was
You're
looking at
talking
scenario one, where it's just
Oh,
all
I'm-
large retail,
I'm
and
talking
that
about
it's
this.
possible you
Well,
could
that
do
might be more,
conventional.
yeah, and do
Exactly.
conventional, and that makes it even more
Yeah.
likely
Right,
that it's
that's
gonna
a big
happen.
part
Right.
of why we felt
don't have to go through the
scenario
health
one was
department
the
in the same
more
way,
likely
yeah.
scenario.
It's a good
Well,
point.
you know, a large, you know, big box retail like that, probably not gonna generate a lot of flow,
Right.
you know,
Oh,
furniture
not-
store, whatever.
Furniture store is different, but supermarkets, things like that, that deal in produce and stuff, that's a whole different. So
Yeah.
you really can't opine on it because you don't know what the mix might be.
Right. I'm just saying, we don't, or the county, I don't think requires sewage treatment or IA for this type of commercial
That's correct. For
development.
option one, it would be conventional, likely sanitary systems, regular, you know, you'd have your dry wells in the parking lot, you have your conventional, you know,
Yeah, they have
system.
the lot area.
And they have the lot, they have the area, and that would be, that's why this is also more likely than the other ones, like we said. So anyway, sorry. Paul.
But I will add, that just not knowing what that commercial entity might be under that, that could be subject to review and we should.
Yeah.
Thanks.
The idea was to get looking at the forms.
Mhm.
Like, what are we even talking about? What are
Right.
our options? Right? You have to start, it can't just be like, you know,
And this would go to the planning board. They would put in their
Yes.
applications. This is
well, like I
without
said,
variances.
the senior citizen zone is a floating zone that the town board lands. So someone could make application to you, and you could see your way to adding that floating zone if you wanted to. The criteria, the biggest criteria for that floating zone is its proximity to a downtown.
I appreciate the as-of-right evaluation.
Okay.
So we had kind of jumped ahead, you know, but in looking at these, the big question was, are these consistent with what we heard the public wanted? We talked about this a little bit. You know, again, I think those larger stores are not creating that vibrant, walkable scenario that we resoundingly heard was desired.
Right, and those are flat roof, one-story buildings, probably modern looking, right, like typical, like a Marshalls or a TJ Maxx or that kind of thing.
Yeah, yep. So really not enhancing the existing character, I'd say. You know, so again, in thinking about, well, you know, why are those development options at odds? You know, looking back to what we had done in the data gathering phase. Again, Hampton Bays is such a long block. There are not those intersections. There are fewer street buildings fronting on the street, you know, versus Sag Harbor, or Greenport, or Southampton. You can see the frequency of intersections, you know, creates more street frontage so that there are more front doors, more windows on the street. It slows traffic. I think the streetscape as well, a lot of the images we were looking at, and you can see, you know, in some of these street trees, help to buffer, you know, parking. I think also the, you know, obviously the road width and just Montauk Highway creates some challenges, but introducing more intersections and more interest on the street helps slow traffic and make a more inviting scenario for pedestrians. And so, again, just, you know, looking at that raw data of there are some numbers, there are, you know, kind of analytical, quantifiable ways to evaluate this, and what is Hampton Bays lacking that these other towns people pointing to have, and it's really that facade frequency, that block length is a huge factor. Right now, you know, I don't think many people are going to walk 1,100 feet if there's not something exciting kind of pulling their attention down the street.
Right.
And so that's really the challenge right now.
Well, that's, again, you're back on Main Street, and Main Street has a lot of issues with traffic.
Yes.
You you know, crossing one side to the other. You know, that's why, you know, the opportunity to maybe have another road that you could get off
Yep.
Main Street, park in a municipal lot or street parking,
That would make a
and
big
then have a
difference.
super walkable area leading into the park. So the park is your draw, so
Exactly,
it's, you know,
yep,
the attraction, maybe going to a concert in the park,
Yeah.
and then you'll walk down this new street, you walk to Main Street, you'll go to some of the Main Street shops and things like that
Yep.
as well.
and that's exactly how we had landed at the recommendations in the pattern, but previously of, you know, trying to create a street framework, aiming for that goal of about 400 linear feet per block, you know, having an intersection every 400 feet is the goal if we look at these other historic places.
Can I just interrupt one more time, because that ended up being a problem. So when, in the DOD, where this current section that's already fully built out, started to get divided into these future quadrants, it led to all these crosswalks. And all those crosswalks were slowing down traffic on the main highway, forcing us to mitigate with a bypass road that we were not able to create. That the community did not want that road. There really was very few opportunities to create that road without parkland alienation and other issues. And so the idea of walkability throughout this whole region is very challenging. Whereas creating a pocket that's super walkable, yeah, you could close off at night, and you could have it be, you know, just 100% pedestrian kind of thing.
Yeah.
That seems to be, people like that idea. But, you know, trying to redevelop the firehouse now owns 3 of these pieces in this section. I don't know what their plans are. It's gonna be some new, I guess, firehouse in the future. You got the post office. I don't see a lot of this changing, yet that breaking up of this section into quadrants created problems for us.
Yeah.
It really didn't. It was just that people were unwilling to appreciate that, like, people drive on roads and we sometimes need more roads, and planners plan for roads. So it's like saying, like, I don't want that bypass road, even if it was a one-way out. I know that's like, oh, Janice, you and your road, but like, honestly, it's so difficult to be like, we don't want to plan properly because somebody doesn't want a road.
No,
When
it's
it's like
more-
behind stores and no one would ever even see it, and it goes to a light. So
Well,
I can't help
con-
myself but
conversely,
say
you
that,
had
I'm
the issue
sorry.
with the parking
But it
behind.
really is
It's
just,
the
You
same
had the
issue
parking
as,
behind,
Disappointing.
which was, no, we
well, you're
couldn't
creating
split
a
the building.
highway
There's no
situation
access.
if you're only
Right.
insulated on the inside, right? And then people are still gonna fly by on Montauk Highway, and so that's who wants that?
That's
That's
what you
the other
have
side
now.
of this. Going
That's-
slow is a good thing. I was at Starbucks the other day, going in that, you know, you can't even open your door. Your door will get ripped off,
Yeah, we were there
standing
this
there.
morning.
You know, people are going very fast. Slow is not bad here. Like, it's not a bad thing to go slow.
It's a challenge though, because it is both a bypass, it's a major highway, Montauk Highway, and we want it to be a main street. It's very hard to get it to be both of those things.
Right.
And I think that was a challenge in the original DOD, which really focused on keeping it like a main street. And it has to be some kind of combination of a highway and a main street. And that's why I'm sort of looking toward other redevelopment areas where we could create more pedestrian experience. And I really believe that the future downtowns to survive really have to be vibrant. They have to be places where people interact. They have to be, you know, culturally, artistically interesting. You have to have those public spaces, the green areas, the amphitheaters, those kinds of things. You know, bike lanes. You got to be able to get out of your car and walk.
Yeah.
And there's limited opportunities on Montauk Highway. And I think if you create that pedestrian-friendly area here, people still will walk on Montauk Highway. But trying to get to those quadrants is not going to be an easy thing, and I can't figure out how we mitigate it if we have too much crossing of Montauk Highway by pedestrians, you know, unless you figure out overpasses and things like that.
Oh,
Well,
and
that would
that's,
slow the traffic down, and hopefully they would stay on 27 and not drive
Mm-hmm.
through Hampton
Yeah,
Bays.
that's the
Yeah, I
other
mean,
thing.
Unless
that's
they
what I was
want to
gonna
go to
say.
the good
There are
restaurants.
Fostering the
there.
ability to cut through by saying
in
mean,
that.
reality,
You have
there
a
is a
secret
bypass
problem.
already.
Yeah.
It's on the highway.
You have a
necessarily.
secret problem. If you
Um,
have a failing situation, then you have to mitigate it, and
Right.
that's the mitigation. We could look at different mitigation, roundabouts and things like that, but.
I like
the
what you're
bypass
saying, Jay.
road-
This isn't, you
Yeah.
know, but I think slowing traffic down is
Also just
That could
calling it a
help.
bypass road, but, you know, I'm not tied to the road, but just the idea that it's just another, all these other roads that go throughout everywhere, we don't call those bypass roads.
There are other routes available.
There are other routes,
Yeah,
so
the
I
i-
think, you
But your
know,
point at the beginning, which I think is critical, because we dealt with this back then, was that you had this 1,100-foot long
Yeah.
block where there was no access. So one of the ideas was to put the parking behind there and make that an attractive area for people to park and then walk. But there was no access through those buildings. And people started to think, well, we're gonna tear those buildings, you know, it became a little bit crazy that way, because I see this as, you know, when you look at these other really beautiful downtown areas, they evolved over a long period of
Yeah.
time. And they evolved in a certain way with certain pressures. And I think you arrive at this with the same kind of evolution that takes time, but yeah, all I'm looking at is trying to make this happen through how we zone and look into the future, so that the residents themselves, the owners, they will have the opportunity to evolve it the way they would like to.
Yes.
Failing that, you know, I'm kind of at a loss. But,
Yeah.
that was the intent originally.
You're exactly right. And I should say, throughout the 400, foot number for the kind of ideal block based on the towns we've been looking at, but obviously that's the ideal. We were not necessarily recommending a street every 400 feet. I think anything smaller than 1,100 feet is better, is moving in the right direction. And I think you hit on it, that it's really about kind of encouraging that connection and circulation flow. You just have the train station, it's a remarkable thing to have the train station that close to Main Street. You have the Good Ground Park, which is this amazing resource for the community, that close to Main Street. But right now there is no connection, from Montauk Highway. There's no comfortable pedestrian connection, to the train station. You can't really get from the train station to Good Ground Park easily as a pedestrian. It's tricky to navigate. I think that was one of the
It's not so
overarching
bad.
things
I mean,
too.
you go down Canuzio Trail, and it's actually pretty
Yeah.
pretty walkway.
Well,
Rick, I
they have
think
that
you,
one
Through
op-
parking
yeah,
lots.
there are cars going on
Yeah.
the highway.
The original idea of the traffic flowing down Montauk Highway, going to a business and then exiting onto Good Ground Road, I thought was a great idea. I think that, as people build, is the future to get more traffic off Montauk Highway. To do the same thing, people to go to the park, I don't really consider the parking lot at Good Ground Park a road necessarily, with the speed bumps and everything going on. If there was a way to have some access to Squiretown Road, so essentially you're never making a left-hand turn out of one of the businesses, crossing two lanes, because that slows everything down on Montauk Highway, and you'd have a clearer flow. But we would need some way, other than this, to get onto Squiretown Road. But the cross-access here, I thought was a great idea.
And I think you're right that, that at the park, that feels like a parking lot, has the speed bumps, it doesn't feel like a road right now. But think how amazing that would be, to be able to sit at a table on the sidewalk outside a restaurant, fronting the park. Like that, I think that is, could really be a big draw.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
there was street frontage along that, parking lot essentially right now.
well, we did want to create at least, another way to enter or exit the park, other than Squiretown. That was always sort of the plan. It could be, the new road here, could be a road at the cul-de-sac here, There's other possibilities. I wanted to say too that although we can't get this bypass road created, there may be an opportunity to get an extra eastbound lane to the light at Springville. I've looked at that may allow that traffic to get around downtown, rather than the bypass road, just stay in the lane. That would take you, allow you to make that right.
So Springville will have to be upgraded as well?
No, I don't think so. You just would
No,
make
it's
it
two
right.
lanes.
No, it'd be one lane turning out to Springville, but you would have a separate turning lane. You have a turning lane now, but it's, as you make the left after Macy's, you're forced into one lane, and then you get back into a right turning lane. It would basically stay two lanes the whole way to Springville, heading east.
we
It's a
would need to
possibility.
coordinate with the county, because at this point it would be up to them, and then you have your right-of-way issues. But yes,
You
that's a
have two
good
lanes in the
plan.
other direction, but in the
I
eastbound direction, you
know.
have one.
It makes me sad that that section of Montauk Highway between Springville and Macy's would turn into a 4-lane with a turning lane rather than having a bypass route.
Right
In
now
the
it's
back where
just-
no one sees it.
No, I hear you.
Councilwoman Lofted would have told you how many accidents there were every week there at those
I
locations.
know, that's
Well,
what,
right
you
now
know,
it's
we
three
wanted,
lanes, right?
we
It's
wanted
three
that
lanes.
access road to, you know, to give future options for the hamlet to develop.
Yeah, I can't figure out
I
how
know.
to get there. To be
I
honest
know.
with you, we've looked at it, we tried to create it, the community.
You just need to put it on for a referendum vote. You can do it if you wanted to, but we already have the right of way, but I'm not gonna worry about that. The real question is, these as of right scenarios, forgetting about that road for now, because, we can create other ways in and out. Is that that's your starting point, really. So you're listening to people, and people, what do you want, this and that. Well, you have to recognize the possibilities and the rights that people who own the property may come in with. Now, that's not to say they wouldn't come to the planning board and we would say, no, you gotta, land bank this parking or change this or that. And, but I think it's a good starting point, at least to understand what the options are. And, it's not easy to get to the beautiful design. Somebody's not going to put all this money into these facades and making it gorgeous and all this.
Yeah.
Right.
In option 3, there's not much return. And I wish there was. Maybe there is some other way, but honestly, that's the truth of it.
No, I mean, you're exactly right, and that's really, I think, what, hopefully, the takeaway is today, that the development that is allowed and is likely to happen today would really continue to push Main Street towards that highway character
Right.
in, the big box stores, the parking lot, and, would really tip it to being that highway and not the heart of a vibrant hamlet. That is what we heard. I mean,
Exactly.
that's the big takeaway, and so
That's
the
the real
question in
distinction
front
between-
of all of you is, what to do about that.
Because like you're saying,
Yeah,
using
parking
Sayville
places.
as an example,
Any idea of
there's
parking
about a
spots?
2 or 3 block area where Sayville's,
Parking
there's no
spaces?
parking lots. It's
Right.
very
Exactly.
dense retail.
square
And that's the
footages
prettiest part of
for
Sayville.
it.
But it's Montauk Highway too.
I could do
Just
it.
like
Rick,
this.
what's your
Yeah.
question?
But it's slow.
If we had the
180
scenario
minus
2 and 3, how
46.
many parking places there were?
Yeah. I mean,
180 minus
Sayville,
46.
you can
180
see,
minus.
Yeah.
it's-
Well,
it's, there's very similar form,
yeah.
and like you're
Right.
saying, it is
But that,
really
it's
that.
just that, like,
Yeah,
from here to
exactly.
here.
So
it's very
400
dense.
parking
This is
spaces
very
would be
dense
parking
Yeah,
like
spaces.
for,
exactly.
for this.
And it has no parking lots.
Development.
And
in
like you're
option
saying, it's a
one.
much smaller area than
Right.
what we're
Right,
looking at
right.
as
It's
well.
dense, it's,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Where's
it's
this
got very
picture of
charming
the-
stores and
Yeah.
restaurants.
That's along
That's
Montauk
Then and
Highway.
now
Yeah.
picture.
Yep. So this was actually a photo that we took when we were, walking the site of frontage along Montauk Highway there.
So the one
Also,
question,
while we have the architects, excuse me, I'm sorry, you can ask them about that height situation and the 3.5 and the 35
Yeah.
feet. Like this came from the pattern book, and I think it's worth just talking about for a minute as to what that was all about, just so you hear from the horse's mouth. But
I
anyway.
just have one question. I know one of the issues with the original plan was segmentation and just looking at this part of the downtown in relation to the entire corridor. Are we now looking at even less of an area?
No, because we're gonna plug it back into the
The
whole
whole
corridor.
thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And also, just quickly, also, I gave you each this 2-sided sheet. This was just sustainable development standards for the form-based code, but I would advise if you're starting over again from scratch, anything you do should include, this and maybe, which also increased costs, by the way. So these are all the things that we had wanted as far as sustainability goes. As well, creating solar and heat island reduction, water, use, et cetera. So, I just wanted to point out that wherever you go, like, we should include those sustainable design standards.
These pictures are great, I just wanted, can you tell me this one, this is downtown Hampton Bays?
Yes.
What year is this? You know?
Are you going
Judging
in?
by
I
the
would
cars, I
have
would say in the
to
20s.
double check. We got that from the Historical Society, so I'd have
Yeah,
to
we didn't write the year down.
double check.
And what is that tall structure that's in the center of it?
I don't know.
Yeah, clearly it's not there anymore. So that
It
would
looks like
be,
a church to me too. but it's got
But
a.
it's,
No, it has
I don't
an
know, it's
awning.
like
Got a
a.
wire
It looks like a
attached to it.
retail,
Lights hanging in the middle.
looks like a retail
It's got
store.
Well, maybe
power
it's a-
going
maybe
to
it's
it.
a-
I think
At
there
that
might have been a light
corner.
there.
Maybe
Might have
that's
been
a,
something
maybe it's a
hanging.
light in the
I think it's a light like
front,
hanging down in the
hanging from a
foreground.
wire.
Oh, it
Could
is,
be, I
it
guess
is.
you're right.
Oh, that's
There's
interesting.
no base to it.
Yeah.
There's a car there.
Oh,
There's
this
a-
is superimposed.
Street light.
Yeah.
And then
This is present with an overlay of some old.
so in this other old looking
Amazing
picture
how
that
many
has the
buildings
local
are still
bike
there.
shop.
7-Eleven.
Yeah.
And that was
Very
the photo that we
familiar.
had
Right?
taken, I think, in
Yeah, that's on
2017.
the other
and
side
we
of
had-
the street. That's
we-
7-Eleven.
Yeah, on the
Yeah.
opposite side of the street, and we had just put
35
a
cents?
sepia tone to make it.
So, but this building exists?
Yes.
35
There's a
cents to
little
go
local
with.
bike shop there? Where is it? This across from
It's
some
not, it used to be the bike shop, it's something else now.
It's something else
Yeah.
now. Oh, so, yeah, this is that,
She'll tell
Be
people
the
that.
deli or
yeah, or it was Orlando's, and then this is next door to that, right, it may have been redeveloped.
This is Fandango's.
Fandangos, exactly, okay.
I like
got
the
it.
diagonal parking.
So did you want to just quickly touch on the height thing?
Yeah,
Did we
it
ever
was-
actually say 4 stories? No. Isn't
No,
that
so we
true?
had included this, and we looked back, at the pattern book. So we were really, working off of the existing zoning allows 35-foot height max, 2 stories. And so the pattern book had proposed keeping that in much of the area, but you can see, so keeping that kind of one, with the caveat that within that 35-foot max, you could potentially do 2.5 stories, if you had dormers and a roof, technically that would be 2.5 stories. So the lighter orange, we're essentially proposing keeping that existing zoning. The darker orange that you see here, in those areas, really fronting the park, a new street frontage, potentially into the park, fronting the train station, those areas where, it wasn't the current historic main street, it was fronting on a larger
Is-
open space.
Excuse me, is that in this document?
No,
I can't,
so
I
this
can't
is-
see what you're
this
pointing
graphic
to. I
is
mean,
the
That's
I
pattern
the
book.
DOD. the
I think I
pattern
know
book.
what you're talking about, but,
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
so she's trying to show this,
Yeah.
that explain this.
right.
yeah,
So
and
I'll
so
the-
pass it around, actually. so
that
you
was
can
a
all see it.
diagram that showed where the different heights were allowed. So the darker orange in this diagram is where we were proposing that you could keep that 35-foot height as the eave line, so of a cornice, but that we would allow 3 to 3.5 stories, that you could build another 15 feet up if you stepped back behind the sight line from the street. So it's essentially keeping that consistent 35-foot height cornice line, but beyond kind of the vision, the 45-degree angle, you could do another half story beyond that, is what we are proposing, but only in those select
And you
areas.
see that on the
and-
top view there.
And
the
what
way
is-
it
what is
steps
that?
And
back.
only
Here's the
up to
definition of a half
60%
story.
of the street frontage.
What does it mean, a half story?
I would have to look back at the building code, there's a certain ceiling height, really, in practical terms, it's, within a sloping roof. So it's not a full plate
That's how it was
area.
described to us,
Yeah.
and it wasn't habitable from a certain point
Yeah,
back.
it's
but
not
it was- or
the
usable,
full
right.
footprint, it's a partial
Yeah.
area of the
So
building
it's not a
within
cathedral
a
ceiling,
sloped.
but it's usable as storage, or is it habitable?
In our residential projects, you can make it habitable. It is a smaller area, lower ceiling heights, but it could be habitable. And so that's what we were proposing, that you could
It's only a
have.
fourth story, but it's set
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, it's just
And
on a
it's-
slope, so.
And
you
so
don't
that was
see
the
it.
key.
Limited,
So-
yeah.
And again, it was only in isolated
designed.
areas, the darker
Next to
orange,
Golden
and only
Pear.
up to
Check that
60%
building.
of the street
It's
frontage
confusing,
could
like-
be that tall.
One of the things that I've heard at these listening sessions is nobody seems to want a fourth story. And there's confusion about what a half story is, so. There's a lot of people don't want 3 stories, they want it primarily 1 and 2.
Yeah.
But, there's some willingness to a little bit of a third story here and there if you have to, but they prefer not to.
Yeah.
The here and there was 60
Well, and
feet,
that's-
only you were
right.
permitted, you weren't
And I-
permitted to do
I
it
tried to
anywhere.
So it
explain
would be
that
a
there
full
are some
wall along the
3-story
street of
buildings in
3-story
downtown
buildings,
Hampton
yeah.
Bays now, not a lot of them, but there are some.
Yeah.
So it's not out of character to have an occasional 3-story building.
But it's an aesthetic solution to add a little bit
Yeah.
more space without the appearance. of
Exactly.
being-
I mean, the appearance from the street would remain the same because we're keeping that 35-foot height limit for the eave line.
Right.
And so really, you know, somebody could build a 35-foot tall one-story or two-story building if they wanted, you know, right now. So it's really not significantly different. It's just that allowing that step back. And part of that was really to give developers a little bit of incentive so that it was more economically attractive to develop these smaller parcels. You know, it's really not economically feasible. If you have a small parcel, you can build a small 1 or 2 story building, you're never gonna get your return out of that, in our current model of financing. So that's the challenge.
Right. I think people do understand that. I mean, they can have a lovely plan that doesn't lead to anything because nobody's going to invest if they feel that they're going to lose money. You know, I think people want at least a reasonable shot. Everybody knows that there's risk when you invest, and you might lose everything. You might have a storefront that sits empty. You might have an apartment that you can't rent, but you know, most people want some reasonable expectation that they'll at least break even and maybe, you know, maybe see a return, you know, on their investment. I think the public understands that too, that, you know, economics sort of drives it, and nobody's investing based on current zoning. And we need to understand why. Why aren't people investing? And if they did, because, you know, sometimes rents go up over time, supply and demand, you know, you might start to see investment into downtown Hampton Bays. People don't like to just sit on property and
Yeah.
pay property taxes. Eventually, they'll say, well, what can I do? What can I do? Which is what you've laid out. And, you know, they're likely to do whatever is the most economically advantageous, which it sounds like would be the retail development.
Yeah.
Some people would say, well, then at least we don't have the additional apartments, right?
Yeah.
But you would have a lot of traffic generation.
Yes, a lot of traffic generation, and like we said, it's going to continue to erode kind of the character of downtown Hampton Bays into that highway.
You know,
Um, model.
you know, that's, I think, one of the risks that Hampton Bays is vulnerable to lose its sense of place.
Yes.
That it will can look like anywhere USA, you know.
I mean, that is the big,
Any sort of bypass highway type of,
yeah.
you know, like Jericho Turnpike, whatever. Use
That's
a
the
Long
risk of
Island
doing
example.
nothing and not changing right now, is that
Right.
you
And it
risk
is-
losing
Then you
what
don't have
is
character.
left.
You know,
yeah.
one of the things that draws people to the East End is the historic hamlet centers. Whether it's Bridgehampton or Amagansett, Sag Harbor, or Greenport, you know, the old pattern of development created these really cool main streets. And the main streets suffered during the mall era, and the main streets are suffering during the Amazon era. But those that are sort of surviving are those that provide things for people to do,
Yeah, destination.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
have an experience. People want to go downtown and walk around, you know, have a sandwich at a cafe somewhere, or, you know, see a show somewhere, you know, whatever it might be, performance. And I think that if it's going to survive, you know, it has to have that sort of critical mass. It has to have those attractions so that people do go downtown and spend money. And we're trying to find out in our survey, you should look at our survey, what people currently go downtown for, how often they go downtown, sort of what are the unmet needs, what are the met needs. I mean, right now, there's a lot of health and beauty type of places, like hair salons, nail salons. Seems to be quite a few. You know, there's the 7-Eleven, the hardware store, and sports stores and things like that, but there's not a great diversity of things, and so people then have to go elsewhere out of Hampton Bays, which creates traffic.
And they all go to the big box stores in
Yeah, and if you
Riverhead.
just have in downtown the same things that you can get on Amazon without having to deal with the traffic and get them cheaper, that's not gonna bode well for the future. So, you know, I've been thinking a lot about downtown and how it services the community, or will serve the community, and the community is diverse. It's really, there are different sectors. There's tourism, there's hotels now, there's second homes, there's year-round working people, retired people. There's a real diversity in trying to make downtown work for everybody. You know, I think that's the challenge.
So next steps are that historical concepts are sort of taking your listening session information, and we just want to sort of understand how that's getting, sort of told, translated, we're keeping notes at this meeting,
Well, what would be helpful to me, one is, you've done some basic sort of massing of as-of-right zoning. What I'd like to see that develop more in terms of renderings, with the parking, what that might feel like as you walk down Main Street, to
Yeah.
see the shops that are likely to occur. And you can do the different scenarios and, rather than just a rectangle,
Yeah, and that is our next step, to look at some more character drawings of that, and then
And
also
people
look
might
at.
like that, and I've said over and over,
Another option.
if you want you'll get under current zoning, then our job is done.
Right.
But, I was in a room of probably 50 people the other day, and I asked that question directly, do you want us to not focus on downtown and just leave things alone and let it evolve, according to current zoning? And no one raised their hand. And then I asked the opposite, do you want us to, try to revitalize downtown? And, it was everybody, and I said that may mean changing the zoning to, try to attract investment and things like that, but it was overwhelming. Every hand went up in the room. This was the Hampton Bays Beautification Association. So it seems like the community is saying, yes, there seems to be a question of what revitalization means and looks like. So yes, they want something to happen. But they're not exactly sure yet what that is. But we're getting there. I feel like we're getting to a consensus, then we just don't know if that's viable. So where I feel like your skills could really be helpful is not only what currently on the current zoning, but also taking all of what the community wants now and sort of creating that.
Yeah.
And then backing into what zoning would be then needed to allow that to happen, and then bringing sort of the property owners, and it's not just one person, there's numerous property owners, to the table and say, look, the community would like to create this new street to the park with, some boutique shops and some real local shops and wide sidewalks and outdoor dining and things like that, with plenty of parking. Are you interested? How do we work with you? Or, and I think there's some interest on some property owners, and maybe on others are not. And so we have to deal with that too and say, okay, this could be phase 1, phase 2. Does the whole thing rest on everybody's participation? But really kind of nailing what that might look like to the point where the community goes, yeah, we would
Yeah,
love that.
we want that. Yeah.
We want that. We like that.
So you wanted this or that type of thing?
Well, can
Is
I
it-
add to that, because I'm not sure I entirely agree with that, because one of the things I think is important is that we tend to make a lot of assumptions. How do people get there? So you have a great rendering and everything looks nice, but what are the obstacles? I would like to see some of the real obstacles. We're talking about zoning obstacles and things like that, but physical obstacles that may be unforeseen. And if you make an assumption that people are there, just have to also be sure that they are able to get there and are attracted by a larger thing, like we're talking about Good Ground Park, or something that you want to go to. So a holistic view of that, I think, is important to help inform, at least from my standpoint. I'd like to be better informed that while we have a great dream, you need to make it a reality, and how do you do that, and what are the obstacles to it, which we discussed a lot of today, but there's a lot more to that. I think you get that here.
Yeah. Well, clear renderings, and people they really want to know what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
Not what it might look like, but really a very clear sense of not.
The only
it-
thing I caution is that, we don't have the budget to design something that nobody wants. So that's the only part about this that I caution you
Well,
on,
we have to
because
figure out
then
what people
they'll.
want, and then.
So
but
the
a
one-story
develop-
building, how much detail do you really need on something like that? Like, it'll
mean,
be, franchise architecture most likely. We could try to dress it up, but for the most part, that's what it would look like.
Yeah, that's what I want to say.
But then there may be a budgetary issue, is all I'm saying. I just want to understand, we literally want to draw out the as of right that you might not want, just to show people like
Well,
this or that.
What programs do you use to do renderings? Because I've been doing a lot in SketchUp.
Yeah, SketchUp,
And-
we use, but we
Yeah.
also do
We,
hand
so what
drawing.
we
Well,
were
I
planning
use
was
SketchUp
to
a
do
lot.
a
It
hand drawing
never
over
ends up looking like
SketchUp.
that without a lot of work, so.
Well, no,
And that's
but-
fine, you
But
could
those
get,
industrial
I'm just saying,
buildings
I
are-
really.
well, the reason why I brought that up is because if you're trying to design what it could look like under current zoning, and, you know, it's gonna be a standard retail building, like a Marshall's or something like that, you can get that off the gallery and just pop it in
Right.
there and scale it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not a lot of time.
Yeah.
Somebody's already
Yeah.
designed it.
Yeah,
It exists.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
no,
not-
I mean, to add one
I-
drawing, that's fine. I
Mhm.
think, you know, Janice is being considerate here for us. but-
Well, I
but, you
deal
know,
with
we
the
have-
consulting
right.
budgets, I'm
What-
sorry.
what we were
put all our
planning.
time into the.
Exactly.
I would rather use their time to like get to the part where everybody says, but this one
Yeah, yeah.
is the, you know, we access the park, we have some good looking buildings, it's at a scale everybody's comfortable with, let's design that
Yeah,
versus,
so-
Okay, Janice,
you know.
when you do that though, can we have some specifics on like the parking places?
Mhm.
And if you say
Yeah.
it's 66 apartments, are they 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 4 bedroom, what's going on? Because they're gonna wanna know about the density and how many people are gonna be downtown, traffic, parking, the whole thing. So we need a lot of specifics for these.
Yeah, and I agree with that, because that's what I was trying to talk about before, and you said it better than I did. What are the obstacles to these things? A picture is nice, and I think it is important to have that, but we have to have the understanding of how attainable it is.
Well, I think too, people have the belief that, you know, current zoning exists and you're saying it could be that, and they're saying it's been this forever, why is it gonna change? We don't want it to change. So if you don't change the zoning, nobody's gonna build that because nobody has built that. And we like it the way it is.
So,
It's possible.
you know, Google Earth is helpful. They have some, what it looks like 3D, you know,
Mhm.
images of currently what's downtown. But in SketchUp, I've been recreating current
Yeah.
conditions in downtown. So I have from St. Rosalie's Church to Good Ground Antiques on the
Mhm.
north side of the road. I've done every one of those buildings. And on the south side of the road, from the hair salon at Ponquag all the way down to the 7-Eleven. I've done all those
Yeah.
buildings, so.
If you want to share that
Uh,
with
yeah,
us,
we'll take
that,
it.
100%.
yeah, that would be great.
100%, and I'm still going, and I got
Do you want a
more to
job,
go.
Jay?
And, you know,
I think we had done a few buildings when we were there, but it sounds like you
and
have
I-
more
you
than
know,
we
the
had.
SketchUp Pro too, I mean, you have
Yeah.
all kinds of options. I mean, you could even bring it into, you know, VR and, you
Yeah,
know,
Yeah,
Yeah, we've done that before.
yeah.
you know,
and
and I
so-
think visualizing things are really important. I've been doing it to sort of see what is, and, you know, then the community can play around with, like, what would a second story look like on this building?
Mhm.
Or what if we put awnings on this building, or that kind of thing. You know, but it also, as we talk about new development, how it would relate to what's currently there. So,
Yes, we
Well,
did
that-
one, we
that's
did
a-
have a view shed of that, so you can see sort of the evolution side included in our contract, right?
Yes,
So you can see
So I
that.
think you need to put the supervisor under contract.
as a sub-consultant.
Save us
yeah.
some money.
this is what I do at night, guys. I'm up to like midnight.
And apparently,
It's hard to do that and-
write
and
songs.
Play the drums and everything.
They're conflicting, but no, I've actually been fun. It's been fun doing it in.
SketchUp is a
I
lot of
was, you know,
fun.
starting to
Yeah.
take pictures of people's signs, like I got skid
Oh,
boards
please.
now.
Design me a new one.
I've done your window,
So,
with all the stuff in it. And the Skidmore sign is on your building now, so. But you can do that in SketchUp. It's really incredible where you
It's fun.
can take a picture
Yeah.
and bring it in and place it and really, they're not, you know, none of the models I'm doing are perfect, but they really, they feel, you get a feeling that it's, oh, like, I know that building, oh, yeah, that's Tony's Asian Fusion, or, you know, that's the Douglas Elliman building, whatever.
Well, I use SketchUp for 3D printing, so if you need, you know, if you
Yeah.
want to do a whole layout, don't go.
Well, then, when I'm done, I'll give it to John, and
We'll
John
3D print,
Yeah.
yeah.
3D print a scale model out
Yep.
of Fill 'em in.
That would kind of be fun, so instead of looking at these maps, we could look at a table with all the little
Yeah,
buildings.
move the pieces around.
Yeah, we can move the pieces
Yeah.
around. So historical, so they're gonna come back in like January, after you've done your listening sessions.
And I think,
Some,
I
you know,
think
more
January is
information.
doable, but I guess the question would be of, we want to make sure we're hearing all of this recent feedback you're gathering. So I guess that's the big question in my mind. I want to make sure we're not doing this
What I'd
exercise
like to do
prematurely
is-
before we hear that
I'd
feedback.
like you
Right.
to
Yeah, right.
review the survey, because
Yeah,
we're going for not 1,200 responses, we're going for thousands
Yeah.
of responses. We want really everybody in Hampton Bays to participate.
Mhm.
We're really gonna push it to try to get as much participation as possible, so that we know that we have a broad, you know, population, and we have a general consensus of the
Mhm.
population. So we've been working on a survey, but, none of us are sort of professional survey writers, so it would be good before we send it out,
Mhm.
that you guys look at it and make sure we're getting the information that we need to sort of make some of these decisions.
Yeah,
So, we can get you a copy of it.
Great.
Frank in my office has been working on it, and when we're finished, we're gonna work on a Spanish version of it. We're
great,
gonna do it online, but we're gonna mail it. We're gonna mail the QR code,
great.
so anybody can just take a picture, and on their iPhone, whatever phone they have, they'll be able to do the survey.
Great.
Really, it's a fun survey, and,
You offering prizes to
Uh,
entice people to do it?
well, we're expanding it now,
Yeah.
because now that we've moved it from a paper survey to an online survey, we think we can ask some of the questions about aesthetics
Great.
and style. We show some images.
Yeah.
Originally, we weren't gonna have any imagery on it at all, but now I think we can have people react to images.
Mhm. Great. Do you guys have set timing goals for the survey? When you're gonna release it and expect and close it?
Not really. I'd like to get it out, sometime in December, ideally. But if it went out in January or February, that would be okay too. I'd like to kind of keep things moving, so sooner,
And we
Better.
can review and provide feedback quickly. I was really only asking just because I think it would be beneficial for us to wait to do these proposed kind of renderings until after we
I
can
think
see the
so,
results
too.
from that
Yeah.
survey.
yeah.
That's a good idea. And maybe you wanna put some of these imageries in the survey and be like,
But
this
Yeah,
is as of
we-
right on
Yeah.
We have
what would
a
you
lot
think
of-
of that? So
Yeah.
you can get some
We're
feedback on what
happy
they've
to
shown you
provide,
today
any of
in
the
the
imagery
survey
we
if you
have.
wanted to.
From the
I'd
data
like an
gathering from the
objective
previous
view of the
survey.
I think
Yeah.
that's a good idea. They look at that.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, we have a whole series of
Yeah, questions and
stakeholder
images from before
questions and-
that we can
Right.
share too, if any
Yeah.
of those are helpful.
Well,
We do,
I
yeah,
know you have that,
we do
yeah.
have that,
Yeah.
so we have that.
But, in having your firm work sort of, if there is consensus on this, opening up the park to Main Street, and creating this road with the wide sidewalks, and lots of landscaping, pedestrian-friendly, bike lanes and things like that, real walkable park and walk, trying to figure out what that's gonna look like.
Mhm.
I think it's really, in great detail.
Yep,
So people can really go, yeah, that would be a real asset, and I love that. Or, no, that doesn't fit Hampton Bays, or I'm concerned about one thing or another,
Yeah.
I think it's gonna take some work to get to that point, though I do think people do want that. There's an opportunity there.
yeah. I mean, it sounds like what you're hearing now is very consistent with what we heard 6 years ago. I mean, there was,
Yeah, well, it's the scale of development. The
Yeah.
concerns I'm hearing, on sewage treatment, there's a lot of, because they want sewage treatment, they think it's good. They do not like the spot that we had considered by the cemetery.
mhm,
And so they sort of, they feel like there are better spots, and they're concerned about smells, particularly if they're visiting their deceased loved ones.
mhm.
It's not a spot that there's much support for, and if any. And they're concerned about the number of units and who goes in those units, the housing units, who that serves, but, it's that density issue. They're concerned about traffic, and they don't want to make traffic worse.
Mhm.
they're concerned about gentrification. They don't, some people say, we don't want to be Sag Harbor, or we don't want to be Southampton Village, we want to be Hampton Bays. They want sort of their own unique identity, and not just a downtown that's gonna have some, $300 sweaters
Yeah.
in boutique stores that they're never gonna go to. So they wanted to serve, basically, the downtown to serve all sectors of the population. And they certainly, they'd love to see the diner remain a diner, they'd love to see the movie theater remain a movie theater, but they understand that that may not happen. So performing arts, and culture, they want definitely a part of downtown. And the height is a big issue. People do not want 4 stories, mostly they don't want 3 stories, 1 and 2 stories. Those are sort of consistent, and I know Cindy, you've been to some, and Rick, you've been to some, Tommy John, you've been, am I missing something that you're hearing? Or is that pretty close to?
It's pretty
Pretty much
accurate,
it.
yeah, the elimination of the bypass road was so important. Definitely moving the STP. I think third story might not be out of the equation, but more of like a mixed-use, variable heights of buildings and, something that doesn't look like scenario 1, 2, or 3, would be nice.
We have pretty extensive notes. Margaret Freelander attended 3 of them and took extremely detailed notes.
That would be
The
helpful.
4th one,
Appreciate
she
it.
didn't, and I just have handwritten notes. But
But I think the first 3 were probably, you just heard it again at the 4th
right.
one.
We have had some new people show up. What I would do is basically allow, if you've already commented at those listening sessions, you had to wait until people who had not commented. So we did get some new voices, some younger people who, were really concerned about whether they could stay in the community, or whether they'd have to leave, and they worried about that next generation and what their pathway was. And, a lot of people just they love Hampton Bays, the environment, the fishing, the pristine beaches, lots of water, surfing, the whole, environmental, people talked about environmental tourism and things like that. But the environment and green spaces is really very important. So I think whatever we do has to sort of be in line with that vision as well.
Yeah, if you could share those notes, that would be great.
Great, well,
Thank you.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if anybody is interested in more reading. We did bring some
I think we all, I
hard
think we have.
copies, so we'll leave.
I'll
We've
take
got
another
2 copies of
DOD.
each of these that we can leave with you of the, kind of our data gathering.
Was that the new one?
So
That's the old
this
one.
is data gathering and the pattern book from
Can
before.
I take a pattern?
Yeah.
I'm good, I think I have it in my office. I'm almost
I
positive.
think, unfortunately, we probably didn't
And they're
do
online.
a good enough job explaining what it was that we had approved. And so, the public sort of had some misconceptions about, that we had allowed too much development. I don't know if any development would have actually happened, but that it was just too many units. It was too much units.
Well, it wasn't that no one would ever want to do this again, so it was supposed to be over a length of time. So I think that was the big disconnect
The
there. but-
focus of
And I mean,
this
that could be.
pattern book was mostly
I'll probably
style.
look at you, the phasing.
It was all
Yeah, I
about
think
style.
It
people
was
thought that it
form-
was just gonna
form
be
and
there.
style.
Yeah. Form and style were the 2 most important things, and
Yeah.
it sort of shows,
Right. The uses
what
can be
you want to
flexible
have
over time.
happen. Because what our boards get
This is
accused of
great.
is being arbitrary and capricious. And that means that
You
it's
guys
just,
gotta
I don't like
share
it,
this,
so
yeah.
no. And someone comes back with something else, and they go, no, not that either. And then they come back with something else, and nah, we don't like that either. And at some point, you have to say what you do want in order for it to not be, you're frustrating an applicant who's trying to propose something. So it's in our benefit to work with people and know upfront what we want, so we can tell them.
You can
That's
tell them
really
what you
we
want,
do.
but it also has to be economically feasible for them to
Right.
do it.
That
Well,
too.
and that's the point, because a lot of, while it's a good thing, your reach exceeds your grasp, in this case, I don't think it does. I think you really have to stay focused, flat, and
Yeah.
level about this, without
Right.
getting ahead.
I mean, you can say you want all the gingerbread on a, like, let me use Stop and Shop, a real example. They were like, it was $1 million extra to clad that building the way it looks today. With all the trim and all the fixins
And
and
it's so far
everything
back
we
there,
did.
nobody even.
And you don't even see it, but
No.
we did all that to get a nice looking building, and that is, you can't ask for like a diamond crusted building or something, and someone's gonna build, they wanna build something that's economically in their realm of, their pro forma. So when you ask for all these extra goodies, that's where the trade-offs begin. And so, but we do want all the sustainability features 100%, as I gave you that list, and the green spaces are very important, which we
People
accounted
want-
for,
they want
and
us-
solar as well.
I think they want a certain level of certainty, this
Well, that was
time,
the PDD, and I
that's
wish
why-
it wasn't taken away, because that's what we could have done in the first place. But, that's gone, but that was what the PDD was all about. What was the incentive? How much did you get? Were you doing? What were you getting in return? And all the certainty, we would lay it out and zone the whole thing.
Right, but
I
the
mean-
PDD was sort of developer-driven, whereas our process now is very community-driven.
Sure.
The community's gonna sort of tell us what they want, and then we'll
Great.
have to figure out how to get them there. And, I'm not sure what the zoning tool is, but first, let's get the community on the same page that this is what we want, and then we'll figure that out.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
guys.
thank you for your time.
So knowing that was gonna go longer than an hour, I asked for a half an hour that I don't need. And I will couple my update with my presentation, so,
Thank
Two
you,
for
Janice,
one.
thank you, Historical Concepts.
thank you.
Can we set up a meeting? How long are you around town for? When do you go back to,
So we just came out.
No, they just came for this, they're going back.
when's the next time you're back out here?
We meet on Zoom fairly frequencies.
We can set it up.
We can set it up.
We can meet on Zoom too, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, we're happy to do that. And, we have a lot of residential projects going on, so I am out here, probably every other week generally, so it's not hard to set up in person.
Okay.
if That's helpful.
That's fine. If you just talk to Jackie, who
Great.
does my scheduling,
Thank you.
something like that. Okay,
you.
so we're moving on to the proposed Hometown Heroes banner program, and Councilwoman McNamara, it's all yours.
So you each have what the proposed banners will look like. This is exactly what they would look like, because this is from the company that would be doing them. We looked at several areas in the town to see where we could do this, and generally these programs are done on main streets. But most of our main streets have been utilized by the beautification for hanging baskets and other things. So we thought a great area for this would actually be Good Ground Park, because it has a great number of the light poles around the entire parking area. You would see these, you would see the faces as you drive through the park, through the parking area. We would have a website set up on the town that would take you to the site where you order the banner. You would order the banner and it would prompt you to go to a site run by the VFW, and the VFW is processing all the payments for these. So it will also raise money for veterans programming through the VFW.
So these would sort of hang
On the
off
light
of-
posts.
On the light posts.
Yeah, there's brackets, so that'd be the only cost of the town would be the brackets to hang these on.
And would there be lots of these, or just like in one location? or-
We're doing all the light posts on Good Ground Park, around Good Ground Park. So it'd be about 30 banners.
But these aren't permanent, they change.
They're not permanent. They would go up on Memorial Day, and they would come down on Veterans Day, after Veterans Day, and then the banners would be given to the family that purchased them.
So would they all be the same, or?
They'd
each-
all be the same, but with a different person, and it would
Oh,
be.
that's what I'm asking.
Yes,
So-
it would be their photo, it would be their name, where they served, if they served in a war, and any honors they got, but we are not putting rank on these, and that was by request of the veterans, because rank shouldn't matter, you
we-
served.
So
your
these
country.
would be hanging between Veterans and Memorial Day?
Between Memorial Day and
Okay,
Veterans Day.
Um,
And
They get weathered pretty
It's a vinyl banner. It's
Okay.
very weather resistant.
great.
And
I
it's-
like it.
they're all limit, or are we on?
No, this is, the only requirement is that they be a present or past member of the town of Southampton, and that they be honorably discharged or actively serving.
I'm just saying, so deceased or no, only those who are,
It could be your son who's currently serving in the military and you want to honor him.
okay, so we're not doing, veterans who've passed away. These
No.
are
It's
not
basically
memorial.
people who
No,
are
it's
currently
not,
living
yes.
in the community, all right, that's what I was
Oh, so
trying.
these are, you couldn't do in memory of somebody?
We can.
Yes, but they have to have been honorably discharged.
Right, okay.
Or actively serving.
Remember all armed services, honorably discharged.
But
So-
they don't have to be currently alive.
No,
Okay, that's what I was trying to.
No.
So,
Not at all.
But that may get confusing, because if you think that these are all people who have passed away, then say, oh, that guy, I know.
my
that guy.
feeling is the majority are going to be those wanting to, because on the bottom it says proudly honored by, and then it would have the family's name or the sponsor's name down there. So my feeling is this would more than likely mostly be people honoring lost loved ones, or, I mean, like I said, it could be a parent whose son is currently serving overseas, or daughter, and
So
they,
the VFW is
Taking
bearing
the
the cost
payments.
of that. The town would bear the cost of.
the brackets.
Of the brackets.
It's about
which would be
$650.
permanent, In Good Ground Park, because you're going to
Yep.
constantly change them. So it's a one-time cost.
One-time cost.
So
The only
How-
feedback
how are
I've
we
gotten on
helping-
this
how are we
is that
helping?
people want us to expand outside of the park. I said, let's start in the park.
Start with
and
this, see how it
Yes.
goes. But how are we helping the VFW? I mean,
The
they're-
cost of the banner is increased. It's, they're gonna pay $200 for each banner. I believe the cost with shipping and everything is about $125. And then the veteran was gonna use, the VFW is gonna use that money for veterans programming, the extra $75, and also to help those who want to honor a loved one but couldn't bear the cost.
So where's it, that's what I guess I'm.
Yeah,
where's
the
that money
difference
coming
between buying the banner and what people are paying for it.
The
is
people
their
are
benefit.
paying the VFW $200.
from? Okay, so. it's
And then
a-
they're writing a check to the company for the banners.
And
So-
okay, and
Is
then
the-
they could do fundraising around that.
Yes.
As a way of raising more funds for.
And there will be also a donation if you want to go on and
Okay.
donate additional.
Is the VFW putting them up?
No, Parks is gonna put them up.
So Thomas Bradford, we buy one, the Martell family buys one for Thomas Bradford. It's up for 2023.
And then we'll have a wait
It comes down, you
list.
give it to us. So the first, say there's 40 polls, the first 40 people that go online and buy them will be
The first one.
2023.
Yep.
The next 40 people will be 2024 and so
Exactly.
on. Okay. Okay.
And if there are more than 40 requests, how is that?
They'll go on a wait list for next year.
And who decides?
It's first come, first serve. As soon as your money, your payment, you watered and your payment is in, your
And who's going to administer?
Jamie Bowden is.
Okay, so there is, this parks, we are administering this.
There'll be,
Okay.
yeah, but I mean, we're not taking any of the money for it.
No, I get it. Who designed this? Who chose
That's the banner
colors?
company.
Excuse me?
Historical, I think it's
Because
historical.
I saw this in Ronkonkoma. This
Yeah.
was-
There are
I see
other
this,
towns
yeah.
are
Yeah.
doing this, yes.
What other towns on the East End are doing this?
I know the town of Huntington has one, and ours is kind of modeled after theirs. I know East Hampton just did one, but East Hampton did it, the town is doing it on Main Street, and they're just putting the names of all of the East
East
Hampton
Village.
veterans.
It's on Main Street.
Yeah.
For the different wars.
Yeah,
They have a list of names.
Mm-hmm.
Actually saw Greenport, I think, did it for their graduating
The
seniors.
prom,
did.
they do
Well,
that for
that's-
the
right, I
prom,
see
for
the
the graduating
schools.
seniors, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, this is what it reminds me of, the schools. that
Yeah,
do
yeah.
this.
It's a great idea.
it was just the park was, we thought, a nice place, because when you drive through, they're all facing you, and it's a nice, there's actually a lot of light poles in Big Ground Park, so.
Sure, a lot of the upstate towns have done it too,
Mhm.
over by
No,
Seneca
it's-
Lake and.
It's a very nice idea.
It's great, yeah, it's beautiful.
How big are the banners? I've seen some old banners,
They
so
are,
they're a little bit bigger than the poster here, so.
they are 18 by 36.
Yeah.
So they're foldable banners,
You
with
can
heavy
roll them.
vinyl, or they're rolled up?
Yeah,
Okay, so then they're delivered.
in rolls, yeah, and then they'll be delivered here, and then Parks will put them up, and then Jamie will take them back, and the families can pick them up after the program ends.
Sounds good. I'm in.
Can different groups sponsor I imagine the answer is yes. So I think a nice idea would be for various groups to sponsor things like this for their members. I know we have a number of veterans who have served as firefighters and ambulance corps, and, you know, some of those groups may want to do that. That is
absolutely can,
available
yes.
as well. We've had people fight in every war that the United States has ever been involved in, going back to the Revolution, so that could, digging
I mean,
up
I
a-
know there's gonna be far more
Yeah.
demand than we have space for, and it's, you know,
Uh-huh.
gonna take a while to get through the list, but
So is it current and/or current Southampton residents, or is it?
you had
people
to,
who
you had to
be a
currently
resident at
live
some
or
point?
had lived in the town of Southampton.
At some point?
Yes.
Okay,
And there was a question on that, but the name of the program is Hometown Heroes, so.
yeah, okay. But, you know, a hometown hero 40 years ago is still a
Yeah.
hometown hero.
Still hometown, you can live in Florida now, but you lived here, you can still be
Yeah.
honored.
I mean, it would be nice if there's something that distinguished those from that, you know, have passed, like in memory of, you know, versus those who are living. Because you're gonna get a mix of people who are alive and people who are not alive. And maybe just somewhere in the language of town honors, you know, in memory, blah, blah, blah. You know, just
You can definitely ask that we look into it.
somewhere on it. You know, or, you know, like this says the year served, it could have, I don't know, is this individual a community member?
No, this was just a sample from the company.
Okay, so like I wouldn't know whether this person is still in the community or not, so it might, it just might help.
1941 to 45, might give you a clue.
The sepia, yeah, well,
Anyway, it's just a thought.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because, you know, because, and this is what it's gonna say on the back,
yes.
to all of our veterans and active duty military, thank you. It just makes me feel like the person is still a
Alive.
veteran, alive, yeah.
Okay,
And if they're not, maybe it's just something in memory.
above the
Some-
name or something,
somewhere, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it could just go right
You know,
here, in memory of Tom.
Or you can just put in memory of proudly honored by, and then the person's and the family's name,
yeah.
or the group's name.
Well, you could overprint it as a flag at the top in memory of the deceased.
Yeah,
That might work, something like that.
Okay.
It's large banner.
Yeah.
It's clear from a distance because they're going to be hung pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
is there any other criteria besides military service?
No, just that you're active or honorably discharged.
Okay.
town of Southampton honors the memory of, yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways you could do it. All right, so what do you need from us? We're all good, we all like it?
No, I just had the, that's why I tabled the resolution yesterday to buy the brackets.
Okay,
So that's the only thing really we need to do.
okay. All right, so,
And, I'm sorry, and where was, it's going to be funded out of community housing development?
Yes,
and how much money do you need?
like $650. I think she was doing it for, the resolution is for an amount not to exceed $800.
That's fine. It's a very nice thing. All right,
I didn't hear.
Amount not to
650,
exceed
not to exceed
$800.
Total?
For, because we're doing, buying the brackets.
It's for the brackets, and then the brackets.
The
can-
banners are paid for by the
No,
person.
no, I get it, I
Oh.
get it.
But
800
the
seems
brackets
low.
can stay, so next year.
They're, yeah, and they can
We're
be used for other
installing them,
things
right?
too,
Yeah.
outside of the season, so.
So
exactly.
there's some
Okay.
kind of,
Get
there's some
good
kind
ones.
of ring that goes on, there's a connector ring for
Buy anything
these
for
are
800.
these.
Probably slip
There
by.
already
come out,
actually
they
are
slide
some in
over.
Good Ground Park, and they actually just zip tied them on so that they don't damage, they have like industrial strength zip ties, they don't
Okay.
damage the light posts.
All right, so they're not rolled at the top and then slide over. See,
No, I think they
Yeah,
are.
no, they have
got the-
like
sew
a,
line on it.
and they slide on and then they have
Right.
caps or
Okay,
something.
perfect. It's just cheaper and quicker to put up, so I was just thinking about that cost too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so in terms of updates, so the listening sessions are now focus groups, we mentioned that, you can sign up. You guys are invited to come, just let me know so I know that there's not gonna be a quorum
We should
issue.
probably go ahead and notice them so we can, if 3 of us come, it's not a problem.
Then we need Sunday.
We notice them as a workshop.
Yeah, I don't know.
That
I mean,
way
I
we-
think you could sit in the room and not participate if you wanted to.
I think it's a community event.
That's
Yeah, right.
not my
I-
understanding of
Open meetings law.
law.
As long as you're not doing business, I think it's okay.
You're not debating something that's before the board.
I
No.
wouldn't want to be in Hampton Bays and not be able to come in if I had an hour, you know,
Well, like, we
and
can
didn't,
cross that
and
bridge when we
didn't
get there.
sign up, you know.
There's so many of these, so November 10th, the 17th, the 8th, and the 15th, there's 3 1-hour slots.
I know what you're saying, you don't
Yeah,
wanna have
let's
to
all, like,
pre-register.
Listen, I mean, come on, we're
So,
council
well,
people.
Chances
We
are, if
don't-
you show up, you're
Yeah.
not, it's just gonna be me and the group,
Yeah,
you know.
Chances
well,
are.
that was a for
The band
instance.
is back in town.
So I think,
Okay.
I think if we notice them, we're okay.
I don't know how to want to.
Good news, Frank, we're changing the survey.
Now I've got to have the clerk, I've got to have CTV, it's a whole, you know,
No, Frank.
changes the whole thing. I got to have a
They
video
don't have to be
camera.
noticed.
It
No,
just
it's a
changes the whole
community event.
dynamic.
Right.
It's
So-
nothing,
What is it? I don't even-
to me, it's no different than going to the veterans ceremony.
Who's
I mean,
hosting
we-
it?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who's hosting it?
Just show up.
Jay.
You guys can
You
take
guys-
turns.
No,
with
I
it.
saw you come in and it
Well,
was an opportunity to move on.
So going.
I guess that's the point, why
Sit in
leave?
the back of the room, you don't have to,
Sorry,
as long
Frank.
as you're not sitting up in a dais and you're commenting,
You
you're
have to
running
be
the.
out of here by noon
Yeah.
today, just letting you know.
Oh, no, we're getting kicked, we're
That's why I
getting the
asked you
hook.
for half an hour that I didn't need.
Okay.
All right, continuing on. So again, so
Yeah.
there's the next 4 Thursdays, starting today, and there's 3 slots of 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 10 people max, and you sign up online. You can go to the town's website. You'll see the focus group meetings, or if you see one of these posters and you go to the QR code, it'll get you right to the sign up. And how's signing up going?
Today's sessions, 2 are full, 1 is, has 3 people.
Ooh, is that the last one?
No, the first and last one are full,
Oh, okay.
First one and last one are full, the middle one has 3 people,
3 people at the moment.
So you can
Okay,
take
so-
them to Francesca's.
so they can still sign up for the middle.
Yes,
And are people signing up for the other dates as well?
yes, they are, but they're all, have open slots at the moment, all the remaining. But we have 4 or 5 in every slot at this point.
Oh, good. Listen, it doesn't have to, if I have 1 person or 2 people, it's a conversation about the future of Hampton Bays and talking about some of these ideas and getting a, you know, people have great ideas. They really do. I mean, and it's really sort of interesting to hear different people's perspective on what the future should look like and what the concerns are and the aspirations. It's been really, I think, a great process. So, all right, so that's that, up until December 15th.
Correct.
And then we'll take it from there. And Frank, in terms of the survey, and we'd like to share the survey with,
Comfortable chair.
we'd like to share the survey with Historical Concepts, just to get their input too, because they're helping with renderings. I asked them to contact you. We've been talking about adding some visuals.
Yes,
To it.
I sent a copy around twice, I think, to the board members, and I
I
think,
haven't seen a new one that has any visuals.
yes, the last 2 copies of it had visuals in it.
Okay, okay, I haven't seen that, and what were the questions associated?
Same questions were the same that we talked about at our last meeting, and the visuals were as they were originally, where you would just state your preference from a set of images, like, dislike, or undecide. I can't remember what the options were, but you would look at facade, streetscape, and setback images of various main streets, and people would choose from a set of images which they preferred. And there were, I think, totally maybe a dozen or 14 images arranged in pairs.
All right, so I need to take a look at it, because sometimes it gets confusing in terms of the variables. So somebody may, you know, like maybe there's power lines, and they're having a negative feeling about the power lines, but they like the building, or it's the wide sidewalks that they like, but they don't like the number of
I
stories.
can print out a copy for you to
So
look
I
at.
just would like to look at
These are
it.
all images that were, if you remember, when we first created the survey, there were a bunch of images, some of which you added. I just reused all of those images.
Okay. I still would like to take a look at that.
Yeah,
And-
sure.
And in terms of the online survey, are you doing it with, you click how does it, with a mouse, you click the yes, no, unsure? or-
Yes, you
Or
make
is it a
choices.
drop-down edit?
No, you make choices from the options available using your mouse, or if it's a touchscreen, you could use your finger.
Okay,
CRC is preparing the survey right now, and once it's completed, then we will translate it into Spanish before we release it. But I'll print out a copy for you so you can look at the images. If
Right.
we have to, replacing the images is easier than replacing the text.
can I get like a beta version, can I get,
Yeah, I'll
look
give-
at it online as well?
Well, it's a
That's-
long way from being completed online. They
Okay.
just, the women in the office downstairs only got a copy of it
No, that's fine,
earlier this week, so it's taking some time.
okay. I appreciate that, and I know it's gonna take some time. I
Yep.
wanna make sure it's user-friendly and we're not getting.
It's a cumbersome survey.
You know, with the images in particular that we're not getting false reads, sort of, if it's a facade, we're trying to get an understanding of whether they like that look, and they're responding to, the traffic in front of it,
Mhm.
that's making them feel
Well,
negative.
again, I'll print out a copy, it'll
Okay.
be with your other material on your
Okay.
desk inside.
All right, so other than that, I won't say anything really about the budget. We
Thanks,
passed the
Frank.
budget, and I appreciate all the work you guys did on the budget. There's a winter coat drive. Frank, stick around if you have other updates you want to provide, but there's a winter coat drive. This is from November 14th through February 10th of next year. You can drop new or gently worn items at a bunch of different locations, including the Southampton Town Police Headquarters, Quogue Village Police Department, Stony Brook, Southampton Hospital, West Hampton Beach Police Department, any unwanted winter coats, hats, gloves, scarves, that, obviously we're getting these to people in need. So if you have extra coats or scarves or gloves, please donate them. And we could probably add locations if I see we're not using Town Hall as a
We'll
location.
probably get one here.
Okay,
We had one here last winter.
okay, so maybe we'll try to get one here as well. Frank, did you have any updates? I know we've purchased the building in Hampton Bays, or sort of the west end of Hampton Bays, the new building. We closed on that. I think I've already updated the board. We're working with the town engineer on,
Whatever renovations are needed.
you're gonna have to come forward. I know the trustees have looked at the building and shared some of their needs. I know Councilwoman McNamara are working on this as well.
Yeah.
They're looking for a little more space in that building than they had initially.
Yeah, I just met with Kara Back and with Tom about some of the refinements of needs that they may have and what can be done, if anything, with the currently unconditioned space on the second floor. There's an unfinished attic portion which could be useful. Tom is going to evaluate what it might require of the town in terms of cost and operations to make that portion of the building useful.
Right. In terms of the blinking light program, I have not gotten the analysis yet. I do not know,
I would assume we'll have a work session when you get that.
I think so.
It's going to take a little time.
It's gonna take some time to do, Tom's working on it, and Tom Neely, Tom Houghton. I know the Canoe Place Road is doing great. Blinking that really helps. And I don't know how long we can keep that going for. Things should be slowing down, but, some of the other lights may not show the improvements that we hoped preliminarily. So that's, we can still look at other options and things like that, but I'll wait for the data before, jumping to too many conclusions, but,
Just a point, we have planning coming in about 11 minutes. So
all right, so let me kick it to you guys. You guys have any updates?
Nope.
Quick updates?
I've got two real quick ones. The Eastport sidewalks are done. Hooray!
Oh, good.
So we'll have the Andrea Spilka Park dedication probably this coming spring, early summer, something like that. Other update I have is the Habitat for Humanity in Long Island. We've been having the North Sea Transfer Station has been going really well, where people are taking in or giving those as donations, and they're generating a lot of revenue from it. We'll end November 23rd to pick up again next year So if you've got your donations, please bring them in by that date, and it's from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the North Sea Transfer Station.
That was Councilwoman Lobsted's initiative. It's working well.
Well, we worked on it together,
Oh, you
but
worked on it
yes.
too? Oh,
I
good.
just have one transfer station update, since you're talking about the transfer station. I have asked IT to install credit card machines at West Hampton and at Hampton Bays, because currently we only have that ability at North Sea. And so a lot of the contractors that now do not have vouchers have to pay, and they don't want to give their employees checks and cash to pay. So being able to use credit card at those facilities will make a
That's
big
great.
difference.
Good.
And it also will hopefully disperse the load, because right now they're all sending them to North Sea.
To North Sea,
Yeah.
exactly. yeah.
Yeah. It's better to not have cash.
Yes.
This creates issues. But, okay, so you're working on that with the controllers?
Yep.
And with Tom?
Yes.
Tom? Okay.
And
Any
IT.
other updates, Tommy John?
Sure. This year marks the 5th year that Southampton Town has been working with the YMCA, the New York Alliance of YMCA, with our Youth in Government program. We have expanded it to the middle school, and in 2 weeks, we are going to be sending 36 students up to Albany to debate bills with other students throughout the state. I want to give shout-outs and thank Principal Sharice Miller of the West Hampton Beach Middle School, as well as Assistant Principal Mary Kate Hill for that, and a great educator, Kelly Massaro, who is really spearheading this. This is being done through our Youth Bureau, so thank you, Rick, and Lynn Niles, and Kara Bach. In addition to the 36 students, we're also providing transportation to 9 kids from Mineola. We're recouping some of our money through them. But their saying is democracy must be learned by every generation, so hopefully we are doing our part. It's a great experience, and I'll let you know how it goes. Just for the public's edification, the high school, we are going to be doing it, and the conference is on March 24th, 25th, and 26th of 2023. And again, this is our 5th year doing it. Youth in Government, check it out.
So tomorrow is Veterans Day. Cindy, Jay, and I were guests at the monthly Honor a Veteran celebration at Hampton Bays Elementary School. Got greeted by the whole 4th grade class, who did a wonderful job. Superintendent Clemenson and 4th grade teacher Amy McNamara does a wonderful job. We did get to honor Bill Jones, who you all probably know. It's good to see a friend blush when he gets an award. I mean, it was really nice to honor him. It was just a great ceremony. Appreciate that they do that. Last week, Southampton Youth Bureau had their open mic night, and it was open to all grades 5 through 12. And it was amazing to watch the middle schoolers and the high schoolers kind of compete in that genre. It was a lot of fun to watch, and I got to give the Youth Bureau a lot of credit. They do some amazing things. Great event.
That sounds cool. That sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah.
Anything else? Anybody? All right, we do have, as usual, executive session. So, we have land acquisitions. We have personnel. And
Sure, throw in some legal.
confidential legal. And then I think that's probably it, right?
Yeah, yes.
All right, so I'll make a motion to end our work session and go into executive session on those items. Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Fine.
Okay, we're
Do
adjourned
you want,
for all of the
do you want
purposes.
these back?
You can keep them, I don't need them.
Okay.
So executive
You're gonna get such a demand for that, you're gonna,
It's gonna, you know.
I mean, say.